how to assess your cardiovascular fitness. Well, in order to get there, we probably want to discuss exactly what cardiovascular means and then what it means to you. So cardiovascular is the angle that we would take to understand physiology of the heart and the blood vessels working together. Okay, so just think about the heart and its function and the blood that's sent out to the vessels and then back, and that whole communication, that team is the cardiovascular team. But in order to assess what your level of cardiovascular fitness is or where that is beyond that, just that definition, we have to recognize that it's not entirely just the cardiovascular system we should be concerned about in the assessment of our cardiovascular fitness. We want to take the idea and remember that it's a team atmosphere that allows us to do the things that we want to do and physically express appropriately for a really long period of time. So if we're going to try to get at that angle of, well, how do I determine where my cardiovascular fitness sits, we first want to understand that just reducing it to CV fitness alone is probably not the right way of going about it. And we do this through understanding it's a team approach, meaning the cardiovascular system we would call, in our terminology, blood and how that works. You also want to know that the lungs are involved in doing physical activity. And you also want to know that muscles are involved in physical activity. So recognize there's this entire team that's at play that in order allows you to do physical expression and do it more appropriately over time. We'll just start there. Next, we have to ask the question, what's our intentions of physical expression? A really deep, long story, but we want to go to the spot that says, what allows us to do physical expression that allows us to navigate this thing for as long as possible with no impeding constraints? So then you may arrive at this point and says, well, I need a certain level of fitness in order to do those things, correct? Yes. That leads you back to saying, before I even want to assess my cardiovascular fitness, why am I doing this? So you should be doing fitness that allows you to build enough strength and enough repertoires that makes you as resilient as possible for as long as possible to give you great physical experiences. That sounds very generalized, but we do need to start with that place before we want to reduce it down to what does that assessment look like, what are the numbers, and where do I go from here? So first, understand there's a team approach. Second, go back and say, well, why am I really doing this in the beginning? That'll start you off in the right tone. And then third, we want to consider what are your capabilities? Because then that generalizes it. And we don't stick to like one test that determines if your cardiovascular system is good or not. A VO2 max test or a certain distance you can run or a pace that can be maintained for a period of time. Instead, you want to ask this, what am I currently capable of that I cannot currently sustain? Again, sounds very generalized, but you can say if you're only capable of walking for a mile at a brisk pace, and then you find some limitations where you get tired, your legs get sore, et cetera, and you have to discontinue, then that's your assessment. That's your limitation of what you're capable of performing. All based upon the intentions of wanting to do exercise for a lifetime, and all based upon the idea that it's not only the CV system where you're essentially testing out there. Okay? So your capabilities and where you currently are largely dictate what you should be doing for your cardiovascular fitness. We shouldn't be doing exercise in order to allow us to only live long and prosper, but we can be doing exercise to test ourselves, figure out what we're capable of, use that as a litmus test to determine where we're moving along, and then over time you may be able to walk that 1 mile at a faster pace without any of those limitations. So that 1 mile test for you was what you were capable of, and it was also your assessment to determine what the strength is of your cardiovascular system. So if you want to generally assess cardiovascular fitness, we have to recognize that alone cannot be assessed because it works with a team. We have to recognize that the intentions for doing the test have to be in the right place, meaning we want to be doing it so we can live long and prosper, think great cognitive things over a period of time, and do whatever physical expression we want. And then lastly, you should be testing what you're capable of currently, because that's what largely dictates what you should be doing for exercise. And it does get a little more individualized and complicated beyond that, but that'll start you off on the right path to recognize an assessment of cardiovascular fitness and how important it plays a role in our exercise.